Welcome to video 2 of this short course. In this lecture, what is meta-science? So this video teaches, number 1, what are the individual sciences? Point 2, what are the meta-sciences? And thirdly, why is Ev Cult a meta-science? So here we have our diagram of the 3 scale levels of science. Down the bottom we have the smaller individual sciences, so physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology, biology, etc. On the second scale level we have the meta sciences such as systems science, information science and communication science, computer science, and so on, up to creativity science. And then on the third and largest level we have the meta science of Ev Cult. So looking more closely at each of the individual sciences, physics, for example, solar systems, suns, planets and atoms. And then chemistry, elements, molecules, reactions. Astronomy, the universe, galaxies, solar systems, moons, etc. Geology, so river systems, tectonic plates, geological features, etc. Biology, there we have a dog, looks a bit like Lassie. Then there's psychology, of course, as an individual science. Sociology, the study of groups and institutions. And anthropology, the study of cultures. So these are the individual sciences, and note how there's a progression from left to right. Once you have physics and chemistry, you can have a universe, so you have astronomy. Within that, you have the geology of different planets with volcanoes and tectonic plates, etc. And once you have geology, you can have life evolving. So biology emerges out of that. And out of that, biological organisms have behaviors or a psychology. And then we have groups of organisms, plants and animals, sociology, and culture, anthropology, which of course is just information. So there's the individual sciences, or all the individual scientific disciplines, noting how they blend into each other. Physics blends into chemistry when you go from atoms in physics up to molecules in chemistry, etc. Geology blends into biology when you have life forms and ecosystems changing the landscape, etc. Now let's move up in scale. So down the bottom are the individual sciences, but the meta-sciences apply to all of those individual sciences. So for example, we have systems science, because everything in the individual sciences on the bottom row there is a system, and the units are all systems. So in physics, whether it's an atom as a system, or a solar system, or a planet as a system. So physics is composed of systems. Chemistry, elements, molecules, etc. They're all systems. Astronomy, galaxies and solar systems are systems. Geology, river systems are systems, and ecosystems are systems. Tectonic plates are systems. Biology, organisms are biological systems, so everything in biology, every unit is a system. In psychology, these are mental systems, basically, behavioral systems, so instincts, emotions, and rationality, so decision-making systems. And then in sociology, all the groups in sociology are units, and they're all systems as well. So an institution is a system, a family is a system, etc. And in anthropology, all cultures are systems which have inputs and outputs. So systems science applies to all the individual sciences. All you need to do is look at each unit within each discipline as a system, and we'll get to that shortly. Another example of a meta-science, information science. So system science we have thanks to Ludwig von Bertalanffy. Information science thanks to people like Claude Shannon. Communication science, likewise, Claude Shannon. That's another meta-science because all things have information in them and use information, and all things also communicate information. And another meta-science is cultural evolution science, so pioneers such as Boyd and Richardson and Masudi and others, David Sloan Wilson, etc. That's another meta-science because you can look at the evolution of culture in any domain in science. And then we have creativity science thanks to pioneers such as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Dean Keith Simonton, J.P. Guilford, etc. So a creative unit of culture is just one that's new, useful and surprising, but you can also have a new, useful, surprising unit of biology, so a new species or a new organism. So creativity science likewise applies to all the individual sciences on the bottom row there as well. So you can have a creative new unit in physics, in chemistry, astronomy, etc. And another meta-science is computer science because that can apply to all of the domains on the bottom row, of course. So there we have the individual sciences along the bottom, and then the meta-sciences above those because they apply to all of the individual sciences. Like so. That's a large arrow showing how all the meta-sciences apply to all the individual sciences on the smaller scale level below. So just to recap, the meta-science of systems science applies to all of those individual domains. So in physics, any unit you can look at is a system, whether it's atoms, planets, nuclear explosions, etc. In chemistry, all the units are systems. In astronomy, likewise, in all the other domains, geology, biology, every organism is a biological system. And psychology, mental systems or thinking systems or cognitive control systems. Sociology, all the units in sociology are systems, and same for anthropology, all the units examined in anthropology can be examined as systems. So just to show there are individual sciences on the bottom row, but a meta-science, like say system science, applies equally to all those individual sciences. Because all the units are systems, or either systems or the inputs, outputs, or tools of systems. And that's why systems science is a meta-science which applies to all the individual sciences in a nutshell. So then one level above the meta-sciences, we have EvCult, which is a meta-science because it reduces all systems and units of culture to their simpler scientific structure and function, the fractal holon parton. There it is with its 3 laws. So there we have the bottom row, individual sciences, then meta-sciences above that, and EvCult, which is a meta-science and applies to everything there, including all the individual scientific domains. So the 3 laws of all units. Here's a question: what does this diagram show? It shows what everything is and how it works. It's a diagram of the 3 laws of fractal holon partons. The 3 laws are integrate upwards into the larger unit on the scale level above. Also compete and or cooperate sideways or laterally with other units on the same scale level. So you might want to think about a movie, say, when 2 movies come out, they compete. Are we going to see this movie or that movie? Or they can cooperate. Let's go see them both. And they both integrate upwards into a larger movie genre. And law 3, control and command downwards and inwards, the smaller scale units on the level below, which are inside them. So each individual movie and the idea behind the movie controls all the scenes within the movie. So that's an example of the 3 laws of fractal holon partons, just using a movie as an example because most people know movies. And there's a fractal holon parton. So using this diagram, we can see how the 3 laws work. You can choose any size circle there, large, medium or small, and note how it integrates into a larger circle on the scale level above. It also competes and cooperates with other circles that are the same size or on the same scale level, and they also command and control the smaller circles within. So it doesn't always have to be 3, by the way. So that's an illustration of the 3 laws of fractal holon partons, which apply to atoms and to cells and to people and nations, planets, galaxies, and the universe. So here's a diagram from the textbook, Elements of Evolutionary Culturology. On the left, a top view, you just see one unit or one circle. When we look underneath the hood in the middle diagram or the bottom view, we can see the parts that make up the whole. And on the right side, we have an exploded view where we've extracted out the units to analyze them on their different scale levels or sizes. So now let's zoom in on the meta-science of systems science. So a quick recap: down the bottom we have our individual sciences, which are small in scale. Then we have our meta-sciences, which are medium scale but also apply to small scales, because the meta-sciences all apply to the individual sciences. For example, everything can be viewed as a system, or an input and an output of a system. And then up top we have EvCult, a meta-science, which applies to large, medium and small scales of science. So now let's zoom in on systems science over on the left in the middle row there, and that one there, systems science. Let's have a closer look at that, which is one component of evolutionary culturology. So, systems science in a nutshell. What is a system? What is the definition of a system? Let's use that as an example. You can imagine that's one system full of smaller subsystems, which are in turn full of smaller subsystems. So a system is a unit with 4 things or characteristics. It has inputs, such as fuel. It has outputs, such as waste or tools that it's created. It has a boundary, so the edge of a system. And it has an algorithm or algorithms, or we can also call them processes inside it. And lastly, a system is always contained or exists inside a larger system, which we call its ecosystem or its environment. So that's a definition of a system. Just look for those 5 things. If you find them all, then you're looking at a system. So here's a diagram from Elements of Evolutionary Culturology. Let's one by one go through the whole parts of a system, because each of the parts of a system is also a whole unit unto itself. So on the left of the diagram, let's circle the inputs. There, the X's and the Y's. So we'll make that on our list. Number 1, inputs. Now let's look at outputs. On the right side, there we go, Z. So let's mark that off. Number 2, outputs. Now let's look for a boundary of a system. There we go. We've just circled it in the middle. Now we look for algorithms inside the system. For example, an algorithm is X plus Y equals Z. So on the left we have our inputs, X's and Y's, and on our right we have the output, which is a Z. And so this system has taken 1 X and 1 Y and it's produced a Z. And lastly, we've got those algorithms inside there, and a system exists within a larger ecosystem. So there's the larger system, the ecosystem or the environment of that smaller system in the middle there. So those are the basic 5 parts of a system in systems science. Evolutionary culturology goes one step further in scientific reduction and points out that both systems and their inputs and outputs or tools are fractal Holon partons. So again, we've now turned those inputs, the X's and Y's in the diagram and the Z, into smaller diagrams of fractal Holon partons. Let's go through them again. There's the inputs that we've just put a boundary around. There's the outputs on the right. That would be the Z. Now let's circle the system. There it is with its boundary. Inside that we have the algorithms or processes such as X plus Y equals Z. And it exists within the larger ecosystem or environment. So again, that's just a diagram from Elements of Evolutionary Culturology, the textbook. And EvCult goes one step further than systems science. So in evolutionary culturology, systems and their inputs and outputs are fractal Holon partons. So that's a summary of EvCult and how it scientifically reduces systems science one step further to fractal Holon partons. So again, both systems and units of culture are structured and function as fractal Holon partons. So there's a list on the left-hand side, examples of inputs that are such things as language, where you have a letter or a word or a sentence or a book or a literary genre, or in music, another domain in culture, you could have a musical note, a song, an album, or a music genre. They're all fractal Holon partons, units of culture. Or in the domain of food, you could have a Pringle or a whole meal or a diet. They're all units of culture and they're all structured and function as fractal Holon partons. They're the inputs for systems. So we've got a system in the middle there, which could be an example system is a person, and a person is a physico, chemico, bio, psycho, socio-cultural system. And one of the outputs in those cases for language was if someone has had the inputs of letters, words and sentences, for example, the output could be an email they send or a conversation they have, and under that they might send a letter, they might create a new word, a new sentence, a new book, or a literary genre. In music, an output could be a note or a song or an album or a music genre, and so on. So there we see we have units of culture as inputs into systems, and we have units of culture also as outputs of systems, and they're all structured and function as fractal Holon partons via the three laws of fractal Holon partons. And every domain in culture is structured and functions as a fractal Holon parton. So there's over 50,000 domains in culture. There's just about 15 of them, but they're all structured and function the same way, scientifically speaking. And returning to systems science briefly, systems are made of three things: matter, information, that's a symbol of Morse code, and energy, a symbol of sunlight perhaps. And apart from being made of matter, information and energy, systems also process or use as inputs and outputs three things, same things: matter, information and energy. So those are the three basic substrates of the universe: matter, information and energy. And information and culture can be used interchangeably. They're synonyms for each other. So all of nature is a fractal Holon parton governed by the three laws. All of biology likewise, all of culture likewise, and that covers everything in the known universe. So here's some lists. For example, in nature, those are large down to small, examples of scale levels of units. In nature, you have a biosphere of a whole planet. Within that, smaller bioregions. Within that, smaller ecosystems. Within that, smaller landscapes. Within that, habitats of organisms. Within that, a niche, etc., etc. Moving over to biology, we have tribes, and then going smaller in scale, kin groups or families, an organism, which a person or a plant or an animal, organ systems are smaller scale, organs another scale level smaller, down through cells, down to atoms. And in culture, some examples, just in the domain of writing, you could have a paragraph, and a smaller unit is a sentence, a smaller unit is a clause, and they contain words, they contain morphemes, letters, etc. So all of nature, all of biology and all of culture are structured as fractal Holon partons and function via the three laws. So this is just a quick sketch of that. And that leads to the Ev Cult worldview, because the universe is a system of systems, smaller systems. There's all the fractal Holon partons on about 20 scale levels. And the three laws integrate upwards into a larger unit on the scale level above, compete and cooperate with units on the same scale level. So people compete with other people for resources or jobs or mates or attention, anything. And control and command the small units inside. So each person controls and commands their own organs, deciding what to eat and so on. So, the structure and functioning of nature, biology and culture is the fractal Holon parton. That's Ev Cult in a nutshell. And again, our 3 scale levels of science down the bottom, the individual sciences, so physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology, biology, psychology, sociology and anthropology. And we can also add the arts and humanities now, because Ev Cult turns all domains into a science with its units, levels, 3 laws and mechanisms. Then we have the meta-sciences, which are medium scale or meso-sized. So systems science, computer science, creativity science, information science, communication science, cultural evolution science, applied evolutionary epistemology, thanks to Popper and D.T. Campbell and D.K. Simonton and Natalie Gontier, etc. So, and underlying all that is the large macro all-encompassing meta-science of Ev Cult, because it reduces everything to fractal Holon partons, so we can understand and measure and count the units and predict and control their behavior. So this is a slightly more complex diagram from the Elements of Ev Cult textbook. Again, it just shows the 3 scale levels. We have the individual sciences down there. Then we have the meta-sciences, and the scientific reduction in Ev Cult is both systems and units of culture reduced to fractal Holon partons, so we can understand their simple operation. So that's it, video 2, what is meta-science? A recap is that this video has taught what are the individual sciences. We looked at those: physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology. What are the meta-sciences? Systems science, information science, communication science, creativity science, the science of cultural evolution, computer science. And why is Ev Cult a meta-science? Because it reduces systems and units of culture to their simpler scientific entity, the fractal Holon parton. And maybe try the quiz to test your understanding of all those points we covered. But a quick reminder, this is just the tip of the iceberg, of course. There it is. There's many more resources on Ev Cult if you want to dive deeper after the course. Here are some of those other resources. There's 2 textbooks on Ev Cult, and there's the Ev Cult PhD and the Ev Cult weblog. And coming up in our next lesson, video 3, is Ev Cult in 6 sentences. So I look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.